It all started with a swipe. On a particularly lonely night, I found myself scrolling through a dating app, looking for someone to connect with. That's when I stumbled upon Alex's profile. His photos were charming, his bio witty, and we seemed to share the same interests. It felt like a perfect match. I eagerly swiped right, and to my delight, we matched almost instantly. Our conversations flowed effortlessly. We talked about our favorite movies, shared music recommendations, and even laughed over similar childhood experiences. The more we talked, the more I felt like I had finally met someone who understood me. It was as if we were meant to find each other in this sea of digital profiles. After a week of texting and late-night phone calls, Alex suggested we meet in person. I was excited, but also a little nervous. We decided on a cozy coffee shop near campus. The day of our meeting, I spent extra time getting ready, wanting to make a good impression. As I arrived at the coffee shop and saw Alex waiting at a corner table, I felt a flutter of anticipation. He looked just like his photos, if not better. We greeted each other with a warm hug and settled into conversation. At first, everything was perfect. We talked and laughed, and it felt as though our online chemistry had seamlessly translated into the real world. But then, as the conversation deepened, things took a strange turn. Alex began asking oddly specific questions about my daily routine. At first, I thought he was just trying to get to know me better, but then he mentioned details I hadn't shared with him, like the exact time I usually leave for classes and where I like to study on campus. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I tried to brush it off. Maybe I had mentioned those things in passing and I just didn't remember. Then he pulled out his phone and showed me a photo of us. Not from today, but from a few days prior, me walking on campus, unaware of the camera. My heart pounded in my chest. "Isn't it cute?" he asked, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "I've been keeping an eye on you, just to make sure you're safe." The casual way he said it made my skin crawl. This wasn't the sweet, considerate gesture he seemed to think it was. It was an invasion of privacy, and I suddenly felt trapped. I tried to remain calm, my mind racing for an escape plan. "I think I need to go," I said, standing up and trying to keep my voice steady. But Alex's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength. "Why the rush?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "We've just started getting to know each other." Panic surged through me. I yanked my arm free and quickly gathered my things, mumbling an excuse about a prior commitment. He didn't try to stop me again, but his eyes followed me out of the coffee shop. As I stepped into the safety of the daylight, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched. That night, I blocked Alex on every platform and deleted the dating app. My heart pounded in my chest for hours as I lay awake, paranoid that he might show up at my dorm. The next few days, I constantly looked over my shoulder, terrified that he'd appear. I was relieved when the anxiety finally started to fade, and he didn't show up again. But just as I thought the ordeal was over, a package arrived at my dorm. There was no return address. Inside was a small photo album, filled with candid shots of me walking to class, sitting in the library, even hanging out with friends. The last page had a note: "I've always been watching, and I'll always be here for you, Alex." My blood ran cold. I reported everything to campus security and the police, but there wasn't much they could do. They suggested I change my routines and avoid being alone. A week later, just as I was starting to feel a sense of normalcy return, I came back to my dorm after a late study session. The room was dark, but something felt off. I flicked on the lights and immediately noticed a small, wrapped gift box on my desk. My stomach dropped. I hadn't left it there. With trembling hands, I opened the box. Inside was a key to my dorm room. My heart raced as I realized the implications. On top of the key was a handwritten note that read, "Guess who has the other one? See you soon." My breath caught in my throat. I backed away from the desk, my eyes darting around the room. I could hear the faint sound of footsteps outside my door. My pulse quickened as the door handle slowly began to turn. After a series of lackluster matches on dating apps, I was thrilled to connect with Alex. Their profile showcased a mix of intriguing hobbies, and our conversations flowed effortlessly. For weeks, we messaged back and forth, and it felt like we were building something real. But just as we planned to meet in person, Alex vanished, leaving me ghosted and confused. Life went on, but I couldn't shake an unsettling feeling. The campus, once a place of comfort, started to feel eerie. It wasn't just the disappointment from being ghosted, it was something more. I began noticing strange things, small, seemingly insignificant details. My belongings weren't always where I left them. And occasionally, I found my door unlocked when I was certain I'd locked it. One evening, after a long day of classes and studying, I returned to my dorm room late at night. The hallway was quiet, save for the soft hum of the fluorescent lights. As I reached my door, I heard a faint sound from a few doors down, the same custom ringtone Alex had used during our chats. My heart skipped a beat. The sound was coming from my new roommate Taylor's room. A cold shiver ran down my spine. The coincidence was too strange to ignore. I knocked on Taylor's door, my pulse quickening. After a moment, the door creaked open, revealing Taylor, looking startled and holding their phone. "Hey, what's up?" Taylor asked, their voice tight with nervousness. I forced a smile, trying to mask my growing suspicion. "I couldn't help but notice your ringtone. It sounds just like one I used to hear from someone I chatted with on a dating app." Taylor's eyes widened briefly before they quickly composed themselves, shrugging nonchalantly. "Oh, really? That's weird." A heavy silence filled the space between us. My mind raced, piecing together the puzzle. "I was ghosted by someone named Alex," I continued, my voice tense. "They had the same interests as you. The same everything." Taylor's face paled and their expression hardened. "It was you, wasn't it?" I accused, feeling a mix of anger and dread. "You pretended to be someone else." For a moment, Taylor said nothing, then sighed, the facade crumbling. "Yeah, it was me," they admitted, avoiding my gaze. "I never meant for it to go this far. I was curious to see if you'd like the real me." The realization hit me like a wave, and I felt exposed, vulnerable. My thoughts spiraled, recalling every detail I'd shared with Alex, details that Taylor now knew. The dorm room that once felt safe was now tainted with betrayal. Before I could respond, the door across the hall opened, and another student stepped out, giving us a curious glance. Taylor quickly shut their door, leaving me standing alone in the hallway, heart pounding. The following days were tense. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time I saw Taylor, they seemed to be watching me, tracking my movements with an intensity that unnerved me. I started double-checking the locks on my door, feeling paranoid and on edge. Then, one night, something happened that shattered any remaining sense of security. I woke up in the middle of the night, feeling an odd heaviness in the air. Groggy and disoriented, I slowly opened my eyes, trying to make sense of the dim light filtering through the curtains. My breath caught in my throat when I saw a figure sitting on the edge of my bed, shrouded in shadow. My heart raced as I recognized Taylor, their eyes fixed on me with an unnervingly calm expression. They were just inches away, and I hadn't heard them come in. "Taylor, what are you doing here?" I whispered, my voice trembling. Taylor didn't move, their gaze steady and unsettling. "I wanted to talk to you," they said softly, their voice almost soothing. I thought we should clear the air. Panic surged through me, and I scrambled to sit up, my mind racing. "Get out of my room," I demanded, my voice cracking with fear. Taylor remained seated, their expression unreadable. "I know this must be unsettling," they said calmly, "but I just wanted to explain. I didn't mean to scare you." As I fumbled for my phone to call for help, Taylor reached out and placed a hand on my arm. The touch was cold and made me flinch. "Please don't," they said, their voice firm but still soft. "Let's just talk." I pulled away, my heart pounding in my chest. "Get out," I screamed, finally finding the courage to stand up. I dialed campus security, my hands shaking. Taylor sighed and stood up, their face a mix of frustration and resignation. "Fine," they said, turning toward the door. "But I'm not done trying to make things right." As Taylor left the room, I could hear the door closing behind them, leaving me alone and terrified. My hands were still trembling as I spoke to the security officer on the phone, recounting the incident as best I could. Security arrived quickly, but Taylor was already gone, and they left no trace of their presence except for a cold, lingering fear. I changed the locks on my door and requested a new room assignment, but the feeling of being watched persisted, the fear hanging in the air like a thick fog. Weeks later, as I tried to settle into my new dorm room, I found a small envelope slipped under my door. My heart raced as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph of me, taken from a distance, with a note scrawled across it, "We need to talk." The room felt like it was closing in on me as I stared at the note. Despite the change in dorms, I was left with the chilling realization that Taylor wasn't done. They had access to my new space, and the threat they posed lingered like a dark shadow over my life. The fear that they could be watching me right now, waiting for the perfect moment to reappear, was a constant reminder that safety was an illusion. It was a chilly Friday night when I swiped right on what seemed like the perfect match. Jess's profile was captivating, bright smile, witty bio, and shared interests. We quickly hit it off through messages, and after a week of chatting, we decided to meet in person. Jess suggested a cozy cafe downtown for our first date. When I arrived, Jess was already there, sitting at a corner table. She looked just like her photos, and I felt a sense of relief. We talked and laughed, the conversation flowing effortlessly. Jess seemed charming and genuine. After the cafe, she suggested we take a walk around the nearby park. I was hesitant but agreed, thinking it would be a nice end to the evening. The park was deserted, bathed in the dim glow of street lamps. Jess's demeanor shifted subtly, though I couldn't pinpoint why. She was still friendly, but there was an edge to her conversation that made me uneasy. We walked for a few more minutes, and Jess suggested we sit on a bench to talk. I noticed a black SUV parked nearby, its engine running. I tried to brush off the uneasy feeling and sat down next to her. Our conversation became increasingly odd. Jess started talking about her plans for the night and made several comments about wanting to get to know me better. The way she spoke felt invasive, like she was probing for more personal details than necessary. My anxiety spiked when I saw the SUV's headlights flash briefly. I tried to laugh it off, but Jess's intense gaze made it hard to relax. Suddenly, Jess's phone rang. She answered it with a curt, "Hello," and then abruptly ended the call. Her expression had darkened. "We need to go," she said urgently, grabbing my arm. Alarmed, I tried to pull away, but she was surprisingly strong. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Just trust me," she insisted, dragging me towards the SUV. Panic surged through me as I realized the gravity of the situation. My instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. I struggled to break free, but Jess tightened her grip. As we reached the SUV, the back door swung open, revealing two men inside. They looked at me with cold, calculating eyes. My heart raced. I knew I had to act fast. I spotted a small stone on the ground and kicked it towards Jess, causing her to stumble. In the chaos, I managed to break free from her grip and sprinted towards the park entrance. The men in the SUV scrambled out, but I didn't look back. I ran through the park, my breaths coming in ragged gasps. I reached the main road and flagged down a passing car. The driver, seeing my distress, immediately called the police. Within minutes, a patrol car arrived. The officers took my statement and began searching the area. They found the black SUV abandoned, but Jess and the men were nowhere to be seen. In the following days, I was haunted by the experience, feeling a constant unease. I took immediate action to protect myself. I went back to the dating app and searched for Jess's profile, but it had already been deleted. A quick check confirmed that her account was no longer active. I reported the incident to the app's support team, who assured me they were investigating the matter. Weeks passed with no sign of Jess or the men. Life slowly returned to normal, though the anxiety lingered. Then, one evening, as I was heading to my dorm after a late study session, I noticed a familiar face in the crowd of students. My heart skipped a beat. There was Jess, standing near the entrance of the library. She was looking directly at me. I froze, unable to move. Jess's eyes met mine, and she gave a chilling, almost imperceptible smile before turning and disappearing into the crowd. My pulse raced as I realized that, despite everything, Jess was still out there, and the nightmare might not be over. With a deep sense of dread, I quickly turned and walked away, my mind racing. The encounter left me shaken, knowing that the danger might not be as far behind me as I hoped.